Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. In a landmark moment for Poland's energy sector, Canadian firm Central European Petroleum has announced the country's largest ever oil and gas discovery off the coast of Poland, with estimates suggesting over 33 million tonnes of oil and 27 billion cubic metres of gas. The Wolin East find could redefine Poland's path to energy independence. To help us unpack the technical, economic and geopolitical implications of this discovery, we're joined by energy expert Dr. Sławomir Raszewski. Dr. Raszewski, good to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Now, tell us in general terms what the significance of this find is for Poland's energy profile.
Well, first of all, this is a brand new news. We knew that the exploration was ongoing, but this news comes right now, and we are trying to make sense of it. As you said, this is a very significant discovery, and one in a very long time, which has happened, and it's the largest ever. So obviously, there's a lot of expectations, and of course, there's a lot of hopes for what's coming next. But let's not forget that this is exploration stage. So at this stage, we know that it is significant, it is large, but of course, it does not immediately translate into production, because if production happens, we know that there's a commercial value in this. It probably will have to wait for another few years before it is commercialized. But it is important that we emphasize oil and gas discoveries, that indeed companies are exploring for oil and gas in this part of Europe, in this part of the world. So I think that the significance is definitely in terms of public relations, in terms of, if you like, revitalizing exploration of hydrocarbons. Europe needs hydrocarbons, Poland needs hydrocarbons, so there's no question about that. So I very much hope that this discovery is just the beginning, and other companies, not only the Canadian company, but also other companies are going to join the effort to try and explore for hydrocarbons in this region.
So, Doctor, I perfectly understand that it's going to take a few years, but is it going to trigger increased interest in drilling in the Baltic Sea and surrounding areas from both Poland and other countries?
Well, I mean, the geography of this find is very interesting because, as you said, it's in the north west part of Poland. It's actually probably on the maritime border between Germany and Poland. So I think that this is quite significant because obviously there is more understanding needed as to what else is out there in the Baltic Sea. We know that in the last couple of years, the interest in the Baltic Sea has been growing, both because of strategic geopolitical reasons, but also because of the hopes for finding and exploring hydrocarbons. So this is, I think you put it very well. I hope that this is going to be a trigger for increased interest in exploration and hopefully very soon production. If you look back in the last 15 years, there was a lot of discussion about unconventional oil and gas production. Looking back to 2010, 11, most notably 12, in this part of Europe, there were hopes for, if you like, copying the success of the US in unconventional oil and gas production. But we also know that Poland has reserves of conventional oil and gas production, and that's exactly why it's so exciting to talk about this new find.
Understood. Now, Doctor, with countries across the world moving towards a green economy, the production of green energy, wind and so on, how would the Polish government and the Canadian company justify investing in what the amounts needed to get that oil and gas out of the seabed?
Well, that's a very good point. Yes, the world is trying to add more energies, but does it mean that green energies are replacing conventional energies? Well, it is not the case. If you look at the last 30 years, the primary energy consumption hasn't changed dramatically. In fact, the world consumes more energy, not less. So, of course, it has been very useful to have additional sources such as solar, wind energy, but at the same time, the demand is growing. So, in other words, a good energy policy is one that has a healthy energy mix. It's not just one or the other. It indeed has also. So, indeed, for renewable energy, we also need conventional energy to get the renewable energy projects done. So, I think that we probably now at the point where we need to probably have a critical discussion about where the European energy policy is heading, because in the last few years it has been very much sort of focused on one angle, but we know that the other angle has been very much sort of on the back burner, namely energy security. In this part of the world, energy security is very important, and I think we are now at the stage where we try to reconcile, on the one hand, climate policy objectives, but also on the other hand, energy security objectives.
As we've seen, I mean, that's been brought very much to the front burner with Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, in terms of the volumes that we're talking about here, as a proportion of annual consumption by Poland, how does that compare?
We are entering a very risky territory here, obviously, because, we're talking about estimates, technically recoverable estimates, which doesn't really translate to production yet. So probably I would be cautious to make any statement. But as it stands, we're not talking about very significant sort of addition to Polish energy demand, natural gas demand in particular, but as you said earlier on, hopefully this is going to be a trigger. At the moment, they're confirmed in the media today. Reserves are probably sort of at the level of a year of full consumption of Poland. But, this is again very unclear at the moment where we are, and I would say we probably need some patience, and we probably need to find out whether it's going to be commercialized. But I see it more as an important PR element of the debate that, we indeed have conventional oil and gas in this part of Europe, and they should be more focused on exploration. We need to focus on domestic oil and gas production because we still need it. We have security problems just around the corner. Military requires oil and gas. So I think that's going forward. We need to see it as an important sort of critical friend in the discussion about energy and climate policy.
Now, oil finds and oil processing are not new to Poland. In fact, the oldest working oil exploration, oil mine, if you like, oil well, goes back to 1854, and it was in Poland, in a place called, and I'll mispronounce it, but I'll try not to, Bubka. It's quite difficult for me to get my around. Now, that is fascinating because I'm not sure that's general knowledge. Tell us more about the history of the oil industry in Poland.
Well, the history, as you rightly pointed, going back to the very beginnings of oil and gas industry, Central and Eastern Europe was one of the hot spots for oil and gas production, not only Poland, but also the countries of the region, Romania, for instance, but as well as in the Caspian. The Caspian was also this early producing region. Obviously, these days are all gone because, oil and gas is produced globally, and it's an international business that stretches all across the world. So, of course, but there is a legacy. I absolutely agree with what you said. There is legacy. Poland is not a stranger, particularly when it comes to refining sector. So refining sector is very strong, and there are probably hopes now that the companies that are in the refining sector that have been involved in exploration in the past are should be joining this new interesting place development, and indeed should probably consider more drilling because the more drilling we do, the more we find out. That's essentially the recipe for success when it comes to oil and gas. Look at the US, for instance. US 10 years ago, over the last decade, they doubled oil production. This is unprecedented. Very often we kind of forget this important moment in time. US is now the largest oil producer, much larger than Russia, almost double the size, much larger than Saudi Arabia. So indeed, investments in hydrocarbons in the US, as well as drillings, have helped to make US energy independent. So all those geopolitical developments, particularly when it comes to the Middle East and Gulf, we have experienced in the past few months, are not really troubling the US directly. I mean, it does trouble US perhaps from the global perspective, but when it comes to domestic concerns over supply, it's no longer an issue. So we should be really learning those lessons.
Indeed. Well, hydrocarbons still have a big role to play in the energy mix, it would seem. Dr. Raszewski, unfortunately, we're going to have to end it there, but thank you very much for laying it out for our audience. Have a good evening, sir.
My pleasure. Likewise.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thanks. And that brings us to the end of this episode of World Talks. Goodbye.